I'm curious as to your experience, both of you, is when you've confronted an issue where a potential actor has been on the sanctions list of the Office of Foreign Assets Control, where it's a list whereby the government has said you are not permitted to do business or make payments to these organizations, peoples, or sometimes countries. And so I'm just curious as to, we've seen carriers, because, payment to any of those bad actors are subject to fines and penalties. And so we've seen carriers, because of that reason, because it's against the law, not willing to make payments. And similarly, the organization that fell victim could be subject to the same fines and penalties. I'm just curious as to how you approach that. Is it something you guys diagnose on a scope call when I learn the identity? When does that come into play, and how has that played out for you in real life?
Sure, absolutely. So again, that note that we receive kind of determines potentially who this threat group or crime syndicate is. Once we understand that, then we have a kind of what we call a no-fly list. There's certain threat groups that are on a list for one reason or another, and we kind of inform the client that, yes, this particular payment, if we have to make it, potentially could trip an OFAC or a sanctioned entity that's on a list. Therefore, the choice is always the client on what they want to do. And all we can do is present the information to them to say, we don't recommend making this payment. They are on said sanction list. And the client has to make that determination. Now, they will get angry. I've had many clients that have been impacted by a particular type of ransomware variant called Wasted Locker. Wasted Locker is known to be associated with Evil Corporation. Evil Corporation is on the OFAC sanction list. With that, if the client wants to make that payment, unfortunately, CRA would have to step out of that because we cannot make any payments to a known sanctioned entity. That again, those are risks that we inform the client on. If the client goes offshore and magically comes up with a key, that's a risk that they're going to have to understand if OFAC were to come to them and kind of walk through this. We've had a lot of our clients that will challenge us on saying that the entity is on an OFAC sanction listing, or it's, for example, affiliated with a certain threat group that we have a potential attribution on. It's a gray area right now. There's no black and white that says that this ransomware variant is on a sanctioned nexus. I think one of the ways to fix clients' trepidation, if they're on a list or not, is to put them on it. To say that you can't make payments to XYZ ransomware variant. Now, the problem is it's going to be catch up. And what I mean by that is we track about 100 different crime syndicates at the moment. If OFAC were to come out and put all 100 of these on there, the problem is going to be the threat actors are just going to change the name. And so you're constantly going to have to be updating your list over and over and over again. The problem that I see on that is, while you might be able to prevent it from one facet, the threat actor is just going to change it on the other. But that's kind of how we address things. If we believe that the threat actor is potentially on a sanctioned nexus, we will inform the client. CRA will not make any payment associated with a threat actor that potentially could be on a sanctioned nexus. We do advise the client on that. And before any payment is made to any wallet, what ends up happening is a program called CipherTrace is run that looks at the wallet to see if they're known with any known terrorist organization. All these checks that are done are a point in time. And I think Caroline can kind of talk about that with the kind of what OFAC has come out with that pronouncement on strict liability associated with making ransom payments. But also, I think she can also address the IC3 form that we highly encourage clients to file.
Oh, it was like a perfect segue, Bill. One of the first things I was actually going to say is when these kind of when ransomware situations occur, when you have a ransomware incident, one of the first things that we recommend to people is to file what's called an IC3, which is an FBI complaint form. You notify them right away. They do and have, investigations in the collective, but certainly that piece is also critical to that OFAC check, meaning that there are, there's a OFAC regulation that's out there back on October of 2020 that was out there that had talked about that, obviously you would never want to pay a sanction, you would never want to pay a sanctioned entity. But importantly, that there was a risk benefit there when they have those breakdowns. Like for instance, if you do find out later that you have in fact paid a sanctioned entity, one of the critical pieces that they take into effect is the fact that you did inform the FBI prior to the payment being made. In addition to which, it's also just good practice. There have local FBI offices that are literally looking and trying to actively pursue these particular threat actor groups.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, you can click through to the next video right here. Also, if you'd like to stay up to date on more videos like this, like, subscribe, and follow.